2 of the DFS Strategy Show. I think we shall see soon enough here. Curious to see what happens. This is always fun on a Saturday morning, especially when I'm under the influence of a little bit of NyQuil, Adam. The old NyQuil has been helping me sleep. I have had some flu-like symptoms, shall we say. So from there, let's just move forward. And shout out to everybody behind the scenes that always likes to ping me as soon as we go live here with things other than how to fix what is going live. All right, there we are. We're going to have to send out a new tweet and do all this fun stuff. But my apologies, people. Saturday morning, it's okay. We got a 5-gamer. We will recover from this. Adam and I were briefly talking there about the Brooklyn Nets having Kenny Atkinson deposed as their coach. Deposed, disposed, cast aside. Pick your adjective. What are your thoughts on that, Adam? How does that seemingly comes out of thin air until you remember Kyrie Irving is on the team, as one Josh Engelman already tweeted today.
Yeah, I mean, had to be something going on behind closed doors because this was a year with, Durant out that it seemingly was a free year for Atkinson to just kind of develop the younger guys and not really have a lot of risk there. They're coming off of obviously a big win against the Spurs. So had to be something going on other than performance.
Yeah, that just seems it's just all too bizarre. It's all too bizarre. But let me go catch some of these. I'm gonna delete some of this. How did your evening go? What did you do with Jeff Teague? I played about 20%, and then I tripped myself as I was doing a victory lap because I had about 40% of Shabazz Napier, so it really didn't. Those sort of netted out, if you will. And I only had like 58% of Aaron Baines. I was a little disappointed he didn't 20 and 10 in the first quarter. I mean, come on, really, dude. But
Yeah, I mean,
how
I
did
played.
your night go?
I played like 90% Teague, which was fine. I also played a lot of Brandon Goodwin, which was not fine. So
Any any fun sweats or anything like that?
no.
No. Right. And then any hockey?
Yeah, I played. It didn't go well.
Hockey actually treated me well last night. Shout out to the Osmo projections, which were free yesterday. We do have the what did we have? The tiers contest is what I focused on last night. I had a nice little 3x. Turned my big spender $16 into 48. So I guess that's not quite 3x, but relatively close. So I was happy with that. I'll be playing the 1 o'clock slate today for NHL. There's a 3-gamer there. And then, of course, we will have Jay Kari with a free NHL hockey show today. And then, of course, Live Before Lock is going off today for NBA at 6 o'clock. That will be featuring one Fast Eddie Fair. Brought to you by SuperDraft, of course, one of the best places to play in the DFS world, if not the best. If you're looking to find a little bit of room in the contest, we got some reduced rake. Last night, we've had actual overlay a couple times this week, so we'll talk about them. They are going at 7:30 tonight. That will be covering the last 4 games. Eddie and I will stay on from 7:30 or from 7 until 7:30, specifically discussing SuperDraft as we head into that one. Any what did we have for our back-to-back? So we've got Lillard and the Trailblazers, and then Memphis and
Atlanta.
or I guess Memphis, the Grizzlies are the 2 that we have. Do you have any information on Lillard? He played, I want to say he played like 36 minutes last night. CJ had like 38, and Whiteside I know had 40. Do we know any back-to-back 3 and 4s with those guys?
Haven't seen anything.
All right, let's start off here. There is one early game, but we are not going to worry about that one. It is at 5 o'clock. It is Houston at Charlotte. You've got Houston favored by 8. We do have projections for that. It will be a single game contest over there. But let's get into the main stuff here. Oh boy, a real exciting one, Adam. We have Utah at Detroit. Utah favored by 8 on the road. A not so lofty 211 over under here. Let's start off here with the Detroit side. They're looking a little thin at guard, but that has allowed for other players to emerge, such as Brandon Knight, who is also a little bit dinged up at this point. What do you like from Detroit, including or excluding a priced up Christian Wood?
Yeah, so you do have a probable Bruce Brown. He missed the last game, so that's someone that'll pick up some minutes. But Brandon Knight still only 4,800, Jordan McRae 4,500. I think that those guys should both be the primary scorers from the backcourt without Rose. So they both look like good values on Knight and McRae. McRae played 26 minutes against Oklahoma City in their last game, coming off the bench. So I would expect at least that much, if not more, from him here. Knight played 38. I wouldn't expect him to get back to that level because of Brown being back, but 28 to 30 minutes from Knight still seems reasonable. And then Christian Wood's just playing huge minutes every night, and that makes sense because he's someone that the Pistons want to develop. They want to see what they really have in him, and obviously they're not playing for anything this season, so he should once again get a lot of minutes, and he's around a 1.2 point per minute guy.
More or less kind of a disappointing game here. Looking at this whole thing, I don't want to cross out an entire game because we only have 5, which means 10 teams in our player pool. I agree with you on the Detroit guys. It's just lack of appeal in this one. If we were going to cross out a game, this probably would be it. But, that's where crazy things happen. That's why they play them. That's why all of a sudden this game could somehow end up being, 117, 112, and we've got nearly a 230 over under, and it's entirely different than what is projected. So, again, got to keep our eye on this stuff and figure out what we want to do. Is there anything else you want to ring out from the Pistons side?
No, I think it's pretty much just focusing on those 3 guys.
All right, moving over to the Jazz. So question number 1, what the heck has gotten into Mike Conley? He's had some nice fantasy lines recently. Price is not super cheap, but it's not overly expensive. Speaking of not overly expensive, that describes almost our entire player pool tonight, Adam. Everybody will be looking to build a balanced lineup today because there's nobody to spend on. Potentially, depending on what happens with DK here, you could just have 2 players above $9,000 because, of course, you've got Embiid and Simmons are hurt. Who knows what's going to happen with Andre Drummond here? Yada, yada, yada. Steph Curry is priced down a little bit because he missed 58 games and is coming back, so it's kind of interesting. But what do you want to do here with the sort of the triumvirate of stalwarts here with Rudy Gobert, Donovan Mitchell, and I'm going to say it, Mike Conley?
Yeah, I mean, Conley's price tag is pretty cheap. He's only 4,900 on DraftKings, coming off of a 34.5 minute game last night. Assuming he, plays both ends of the back-to-back and you get something like 31 to 32 minutes, he looks pretty cheap there against a weak Detroit defense. Detroit is a really slow team, so that's really the only negative here. But it's a favorable price tag on him. I think that 4K on Jordan Clarkson is is a favorable price as well, especially in tournaments where you could use him potentially at lower ownership. So I think those two look pretty good. Gobert at 7,600 certainly has some upside there, and the same goes for Mitchell at 7,500, who in games with Conley this year has a usage rate up over 31%.
All right, he is, a wild card, but we're going to need some of those tonight. Gobert, 7,600 on, make sure I'm on DK. Yep, 7,600 there on DK. Pulling up the other sites here because we actually have a relatively, I don't know that I would call it stacked, but some decisions to make here at center. Of course, we've got Gobert that we're going to talk about here. You've got Jonas Valanciunas, who's coming in an excellent matchup. You've got Hassan Whiteside coming off 40 minutes, 3 games in 4 nights. We've got Nikola Jokic going against Cleveland. Could be a poor man's triple-double. I say poor man's because could potentially be of the 17-10-10 variety in 30 minutes, but still decent there. And then who knows what's happening with Andre Drummond. So as we look here at the center spot, we do have some choices here. FanDuel, of course, you can only play 1. SuperDraft, you can only play 1. Fortunately, DK, Fantasy Draft, Yahoo do have utility or some position flexibility that allows us to play more than 1. How are you feeling about Gobert with that particular lens?
I think that he's more appealing on this slate than most because you don't have quite as many center options as you normally do, obviously, with it being a 5-game slate. And I do think that he should have a lot of success against this front court, just being able to get rebounds and stuff. So, given the fact that he plays 35 or 36 minutes in a competitive game, I think he looks like a good center option.
All right. We've got, oh, it doesn't let me do the emoji search. That's no fun. Let's just say oh god, I don't even want to read that name on there. The Squirtable. There you go. Congrats for getting me to say that. But you've got 100% correct, I believe. All right, looking at our guards, at our wings, you got some 3-point shooters here. You've got Boyan, you've got Joe Ingles in the mix. You've got a discounted Donovan Mitchell. This is not the most stalwart of defenses here. How are those guys feathering into your player pool?
I mean, obviously, I haven't made lineups yet, but I think that the Jazz in general are underpriced with guys like Mitchell and Conley and Clarkson.
All right. Any other fun stuff for this contest?
No.
All right. Fortunately, we have three good ones. This next one,
Sorry, Joe Ingles is really cheap too, so just add him to the underpriced Utah guys.
perfect. Fortunately, we have three good ones here. Wrapping up the slate, we've got to work through one more here. This is our 7:30 start. It is Denver at Cleveland. Cleveland, we've got some question marks, particularly. Why is my internet doing this again? We're dropping frames. Hopefully, we don't go goodbye. But chat, let me know if we do. That'll be awesome. Start a third stream here. It'll be fun. We've got injury question marks with Andre Drummond, who's dealing with the calf injury. Tristan Thompson's missed a couple with a knee injury. And then you've got Alfonso McKinney, who's been dealing with a sore foot. All three of those guys end up being out. We've got minutes to go around, which is phenomenal. Oh, Winston Garland. Winston Garland's son, Darius, is out as well. But we've got a lot of minutes available, depending on which of those three are out. Do you have any read on Drummond or Thompson's availability tonight?
No, I'm assuming at least one of them comes back. It is a back-to-back for Cleveland. I think that the most realistic situation is that one of them plays today and one of them plays tomorrow. But I don't know which one it'll be.
All right. So, assuming one of them is back, what is that going to do as you approach Cleveland, particularly with the front court? You got Larry Nance in the mix here. Obviously, Kevin Love. Kevin Love probably not playing. Who knows what they're going to do with Kevin Love, but he'll play tonight. What do you want to do here with the Cleveland front court?
So assuming one of Drummond, at least one of Drummond or Thompson is back, it obviously adds another body to the rotation, which with them out and with Garland out and McKinney and Exum out, you've been getting a really tight rotation for Cleveland. So it does add another body. It obviously adds a good rebounder, whether it's Drummond or Thompson. If Drummond plays, it adds another high usage guy as well. So the usage rate for a lot of these players comes down a little bit, making them a little bit less appealing since their salaries have started to slowly creep up after the last couple of games. But I still think that Kevin Love is viable. So is Sexton, who is the highest usage guy on the team. If Thompson is out and you have the potential to get 30 plus minutes from Andre Drummond, I think he's a reasonable play. Not the best matchup against Denver, but they would still be relatively shorthanded if Thompson sits or if Drummond sits. So if one of those guys is out, I think the most appealing play is probably whichever center is in.
All right, moving along to their wings and backcourt here. Dellavedova, super duper cheap, 3,100 on DK if you are looking for an extreme punt. Who knows what's going to happen with his actual production. I do like Colin Sexton. Yes, the price is coming up, but the guy's literally being forced to do everything now at this point. He's had back-to-back 50 fantasy point games, played 45 minutes against Boston. That was an overtime game, correct?
I'm not sure.
All right. I can't remember. So many days have happened between now and then. And then he played 40 minutes against Utah, 37 against Indy, 37 against New Orleans, etc. here. But he has been phenomenal. Don't worry about that price tag inching up. Still worth it, just with everything he's going to be asked to be doing here. Can you consider Shetty Osman, Dellavedova, guys that can really disappear at, well, their default position is nearing invisibility?
I think that they become a lot less appealing now that you're getting bodies back for the Cavs.
Okay.
They're not productive players on a per minute basis, and they potentially lose a little bit of playing time here.
Let's see. What would you consider as we move on to Denver? Of course, as I mentioned, or I did not mention, but they are favored by 9.5. We have a 218 over under here for those of you wanting to check in at home. You have Nikola Jokic here, who, is really, there's nobody equipped to stop him. The only thing that could slow him down is lack of need for him to be on the court, which of course is a bit of a concern. He has basically flirted with a triple-double in his last 3 games. Against Charlotte, he went 30.5 minutes, 14, 11, and 8. He went 32 minutes against Golden State, 16, 13, and 7. And then against Toronto, obviously a much closer matchup. Well, in theory, but Denver knocked him over the head with the 15-point victory there. But he played 35 minutes, 23, 18, and 11. I just want to point this out, that even though 2 of his last 3 matchups have been against subpar opponents, he has topped 40 fantasy points in those. And again, flirted with the triple-double. That's something I think we could see from him this evening. What would you like to do with Jokic and then branch out to the front court here? Is it a Millsap night? Is it a Grant night, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, I think Jokic looks pretty good. The only negative is that with Plumlee back, you do tend to see fewer minutes from him. Normally, you're going to see around 32 minutes as opposed to the 36 or 37 that you were getting when Plumlee was out. Jokic has averaged about 31 minutes per game with Plumlee in this year, but it is a nice price point. You don't have a lot of top end options tonight, as you mentioned earlier. So Jokic looks like a good option against a really weak Cleveland defense. I think that Jamal Murray playing 34 to 36 minutes is a really good option. I think that, Millsap probably plays around 24. You probably get something like a 24 split between him and Jeremy Grant. Last game, you got 28 for Grant, 20 for Millsap. I believe the game prior was 26 for Millsap, 22 for Grant. So kind of depends, I guess, on how they're playing and how the matchups are working. So I think either of those guys are okay values, but Murray and Jokic I think are the 2 most appealing, followed by Will Barton at only 5,300.
All right. As you get on to the front court, sort of using Barton as our transition guy, he's just 53 on DK. You've got some favorably priced guys, particularly Jamal Murray at 6,700, and then you've got Monte Morris at 4,200. Is Monte Morris getting a little bit cute here? Definitely we're hoping for 6-7 minutes coming in the fourth quarter with a little mop-up duty. Is that too much of a stretch tonight?
No, I think that as long as his ownership's low, he's someone that is interesting in tournaments on these smaller slates. I had a lot of him the other night against Charlotte because Denver has been playing him more alongside Jamal Murray since the Beasley trade. But those lineups have done well. I expect them to continue. And it's letting you get 24 to 26 minutes from Morris, who is only 4,200. So not the highest ceiling because he's still playing, he's still going to lose usage to Murray and Jokic when he's out there with them. But the extra playing time does make him a little bit more appealing, and he probably won't have much ownership. So I think a reasonable tournament play.
All right, he did make his presence known on a couple of the Osmo cheat sheets this morning. Those are a free feature that we have. You can find those on the main Osmo page. And then when other content is posted, if you go up there, click on NBA, click on articles, it'll take you to the entire NBA page, and you can see everything in one spot, including the cheat sheets for DraftKings, FanDuel, Yahoo, and of course, SuperDraft. Break that down into cash plays as well as other intriguing plays. Put in a few notes here and there that are important. Those are generally a first look, but players are chosen in a way that it usually makes up a pretty decent static player pool. We don't update those through lock because, hey, those are free, but we get all the good stuff updated behind the paywall. If you have not yet signed up for Osmo, you can use the promo code NBA Strategy, all one word. That will get you 50% off any 1 week package. Adam, on FanDuel here, we've got Barton at let me rephrase that. FanDuel has almost identical prices to DraftKings on Denver today. I don't think I've seen an entire team this close. Murray, I will say DraftKings first, then FanDuel. Murray is 67-65. Barton is 53-51. Jokic 94-97. Harris 43-45. Millsap 47 on both. Monte Morris 42 on both. Plumlee 37-41. Jeremy Grant 44 on both. My God, they're almost identical. That's just a bit of an oddity to see that many players that close. Do you want to set any particular rules or groups with your Denver players today, kind of to take advantage of the potential blowout and not getting too many guys at the same shared position.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't play Millsap and Grant together. I wouldn't play Jokic and Plumlee together. Probably would only play two of Murray, Morris, and Harris together.
All right, sorry, little coughing fit there, but hey, got a Halls, so let's put that in right now. What does it say? Cool relief with a nice honey overtone. Yummy. Yeah, I should have got the dough. Yeah. Okay, don't get the sugar-free kind. That's just a bad aftertaste from the start. All right, anything else from our second game, or shall we get into the meat of the order here?
Yeah, we can keep going.
Memphis, Atlanta. We saw this game on Monday. We're going to see it again tonight. You have Atlanta coming in as 6.5-point underdogs. Both teams played last night. I'm looking. I believe those were the only two teams we have on today's slate. Portland. They are both coming on a back-to-back. Trae Young has been dealing with an illness. He did miss last night's game against Washington. He last played on Monday. Still questionable today. The interesting thing I like about this one is the lack of a front court keeping Jonas Valanciunas' minutes in check, meaning that Brandon Clark and Jaren Jackson Jr. are out. What we have seen in his last 5 games from Jonas Valanciunas has been very, very nice. He has, averaged 28.5 minutes in those games. He is scoring, 14.6 points, 17.4 rebounds, and 1.4 assists in this stretch. That's almost 1.4 fantasy points per minute. Depends on your side a little bit. He only has 0.6 blocks per game here, so a little bit lower there on FanDuel, but he has doubled in all 5. In the precursor to this one on Monday, he had a 15 and 15 in 24.9 minutes. That is the lowest amount of minutes he has played in his last 5 games. Jonas Valanciunas is going to make the center position very interesting. You kind of hit on Rudy Gobert. We've talked about Jokic. We've got Hassan Whiteside coming up. But where do you want to make Valanciunas as far as your core plays?
Yeah, I think Valanciunas looks like one of the best plays on the slate for the reasons you mentioned. It's obviously a good matchup against Atlanta. He's productive on a per minute basis when he plays. The only real issue you've run into him with this season has been playing time. But without Clark, without Jackson, those minutes are more secure. Even against some teams where you would expect him to lose playing time, like Dallas last night with Porzingis at center, like Houston a couple of weeks ago, you're still getting those 28 to 30 minutes from Valanciunas because they don't have Clark to back him up. They don't have Jackson, so it's made his playing time a lot more secure. Now you have a matchup against Atlanta, who just got Dwayne Dedmon back, assuming he plays on the second half of the back-to-back. You have, more traditional center there. And, John Collins not really a stretch 5 anyway. So no real reason to think that Valanciunas doesn't get his, at least his 28 minutes here. And he's really cheap in a really good matchup. So I really like him.
All right, just seeing if we have, what am I looking at here? Ownership not yet posted, but I'm sure we'll have some before we get to the end of the show. Joe Val, the only question I have is Marty McPickles. I have to say goodbye. We don't do that on chat here, so there you go. We've got Jonas Valanciunas at 73 on DK, 71 on FanDuel. The FanDuel question is, where does the ownership come in? How are we going to look at leveraging it? Is he going to be the most popular guy? Are there other ways to go? There are enough options that we could see it fragmented somewhat in more of a plurality than any one person getting a lot of the weight of the masses behind them. So that'll be interesting to see how that one plays out. We had D'Anthony Melton. I meant to go look at his box score. I think he had 1.5 fantasy points last night or something like that, Adam.
Only played 15 minutes.
Was it foul trouble? Was it injury? Was it just the vagaries of a rotation?
Yeah, it looks like it was just probably him playing poorly.
Okay. Are you okay going back to him? Do you want to go to slow-mo? Tyus Jones is in the mix. Price is coming up, but he is playing 6 to 7 minutes alongside Ja Morant, which is a change from basically the last 2+ months where he was the either-or option with Ja Morant. What do you like here amongst some of our discounted Memphis options?
Really like Dylan Brooks still.
Okay.
Alex and I both liked him last night at 5,100. Now he's down to 4,900 in an even better matchup against Atlanta. It's just so unusual to find someone at this price point that plays as many minutes as Brooks and shoots as much as Brooks does. About a 28% usage guy. Um, in the games that Jackson doesn't play, and the minutes are down a little bit because Memphis has been in 3 straight blowouts now. So you've gotten, I think, 24, 22, and 30 minutes from Brooks. But in a competitive game, you're going to get typically around 34 minutes at least from Brooks with a ton of shots. So a really good matchup for him, a really good price point. Brooks is there up there with Valanciunas as far as guys that I expect to have in a ton of lineups. John Morant's pretty cheap as well, so I'll be getting to him too. As far as the rest of the guys, I think that Slow-Mo is okay. Like, he's cheap. He's obviously in a good matchup. You would expect around 28 minutes from him here. Um, Melton would be more of a tournament play because the minutes have, even with him starting, the minutes haven't been great. Obviously, you run the risk of him playing poorly and giving up some time to Tyus Jones or other guys. So pretty risky play, but anytime the ownership's going to be low and you have a cheap player going against Atlanta, there's some value.
All right, it's going to drop here in chat. We do a little selling, but we do have the free NHL projections. Adam has now dipped his toe into the NHL pool. I am now just about hitting my 1-year anniversary of playing pretty much every day, darn near every slate. Sometimes I forget to set my lineups on those oddball slates, but whatever. I like to give back to the community, perhaps, take care of my share of the rake every now and then. But I'm actually, over the last year, have been about 11%. It's slipping a little bit here, Adam. But about 11% ROI on NHL. Very nice. It's been a lot of fun. I've got it all set up with Fantasy Cruncher, with the Osmo projections, and then with the player ownership, as well as the Boom Bust tool, which has been very nice, ranking the stacks probabilities, line stacks, meaning, line 1, line 2, line 3 of the forwards, etc. here, ranking their probability being the highest scoring stack on the night. That has been a game changer for what I have been doing. We do have the Slack channel that gives out an all-channel alert if you're subscribed to it when players are scratched or line changes occur. Oftentimes we don't know what starting goalie it's going to be until 15-20 minutes before the game. And then you have line rushes, which is the teams practicing on the ice. They change up their line order, etc. So you want to keep on top of that. It's helpful, since we're all both playing basketball at this time, to have that happening in the Slack channel. So been very, very helpful for me. I do want to say, give it a try. There's a slate today at 1 o'clock. We do have those free projections, which have been updated for today, which I just posted, but you'll want to check those out. And then there's also a slate this evening at 7 o'clock, and we'll have a show for that from Jay Kari later this afternoon on the YouTube channel. All right. Anything else from the Memphis side here, Adam?
Nope.
All right, let's assume that Trae Young is out again. We don't know his status. He's dealing with an illness, and he has been for a few days. What do you want to do, kind of based on last night's rotations, etc.? John Collins, I'm guessing, stands out. Probably Reddish. Kevin Herter gets a lot more ball handling duties. I hate Jeff Teague. I just want to say that for everybody. What do you want to do with the Hawks?
If Young is out, obviously going right back to them. If Young's in, also going back to them, but obviously different guys. If Young is out, Teague's still 3,900. The big thing is he played 28 minutes last night. He was less productive than he should have been, but if you're going to get 26 to 28 minutes from Teague, he's still underpriced against a fast Memphis team. They're good defensively, but a lot of possessions in this game. I learned my lesson and will not go to Brandon Goodwin, who only played 10 minutes last night, but I would go back to Teague if Young is out. Collins has a higher ceiling without Young. His per minute production doesn't change all that much, but the usage does go up. And, obviously you would expect a lot of minutes here. He only played 29 last night because he was in some foul trouble, but you would expect 34 plus minutes with Young in or out. But he, again, gets more usage if Young is out.
All right, so people asking, do we think they'll hold out Young because of the coronavirus? Well, no. They'll hold him out based upon his own personal health.
Yes, they'll hold him out because of the flu that he has. But
So I've been down for the count for like 5 days. Fortunately, no fever, but nonstop coughing, upper respiratory issues, etc. I wouldn't have been able to run if I wanted to. I don't want to run, Adam, because that's, that's not fun anymore. It was fun when I was younger. It's not anymore. But yeah, it's been a mess, and I wouldn't have been able to play it, but I don't have the coronavirus, so this is not one and the same. So no, if he's sick and not going to be reasonably 80% or better, I would think they're going to hold him out tonight. Atlanta's not really worried about going anywhere. They did have a bit of a surprise this year, but they're still, where are they right now? They're 9 games in back of the Eastern Conference final spot. There are 5 teams between them and that 8th spot, not even counting the team sitting in the 8th spot. So if he's not a full go, they're not going to run him unless he feels up to it. So we'll have to see. I think it's going to be we'll have information, or it's a game time decision. I'm operating under the assumption he's probably out unless we hear otherwise, just based on some of the news that I've read for how he was feeling. But that's just a guess, a complete guess. If let's see, what else do you like from this one? This is sort of our the first of our 3 really good games.
Yeah, so I mean, if Young is out, you mentioned it, but more ball handling responsibilities for Herter as well. You would expect big minutes from him. Cam Reddish gets more usage also, coming off of a career, I think a career high last night in scoring against Washington. He didn't contribute anything outside of the scoring, and I think he had 6 or 7 turnovers. So that kind of capped his DFS performance, but plenty of opportunities for him, and you would expect around 30 minutes. So those guys get those guys benefit as well. If Young is out, if Young is in at only 10,100 on DraftKings, he looks like a good option. I would assume that if he's in, he's not really limited. He, obviously only missed 1 game, and you would assume that he's feeling better if he plays. So he'd be a good option if he's in. It would obviously take it would take away Teague. It would knock down projections for guys like Herter and Reddish.
All right, and that makes sense. And good point, guys. A back-to-back road game. Hey, if you're going to give them the night off, give it off. They play again at home against Charlotte on Monday, at home against New York on Wednesday, and then at home against Cleveland on Saturday. So if they're going to, precautionary, give them one more day off. Got 3 more home games coming up next week. I'm sure the fans would rather see him fully healthy in those situations. Moving on to game 4 of our 5-gamer here. Ooh, let's have some fun. Let's start off with Seth Curry today. I'm about to drop the article. I haven't yet because I had to finish one more write-up. But my primetime player for the DFS Building Blocks article today is going to be Stephen Curry. Here are sort of my notes. So I said, as we mentioned before, this is an interesting slate because there are very few top shelf options. Injuries have eliminated Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. We've got Trae Young, who we just talked about being sick, and you got Andre Drummond questionable with this calf, and then you got Damian Lillard. We'll get to that, but he's on a back-to-back in 3 and 4. He played 38 minutes last night. So, what are his minutes going to be? So I say, why not take a chance on Steph Curry? 8,000 on DK, 8,200 on FanDuel, 44 on Yahoo. That's taking into account he's probably going to play 28 to 30 minutes. He's an incredibly efficient player. He played in 6, what I'm calling bursts, for lack of a better word, in the last game. So he started out with 5.8 minutes to open the game. He played 4.6 to start the second quarter, and then he played 3.5 minutes finishing up the second quarter. Started the second half, played 5.2 minutes, and then came back in with 40 seconds left in the third and played those 40 seconds as well as another 4 minutes, and then came in to start the fourth and played 4 minutes, and then finished up the game with 3.5 minutes. So 6 little chunks there. All told, that got him to 27 minutes and change. I don't think it's a stretch for him to get to 30. I think putting him in at 28 is probably reasonable. Once again, it's all about his efficiency. He had 23 points, 6 rebounds, and 7 assists, made all 8 free throws, and was 6 of 16 from the line, just 3 of 12 from beyond the arc. All he needed was a steal. He didn't have one, and making one of those other 3-pointers, and he would have been a whisker away from a 50 fantasy point performance. I think we can take the risk on him in this matchup, or the minutes cap. Adam, how do you feel about Curry?
Yeah, I think so too. The big thing, or one of the big things, is what you mentioned, that there's not a ton of guys at the top. So whereas the other night I thought it was an interesting idea to take some shots on a low owned Curry, but it was really difficult because there were a lot of guys to pay up for. You don't have that on this slate, so the opportunity cost is lower, and obviously he's going to get the opportunities. I agree. You probably get 28 to 30 minutes. It's not a good Philadelphia defense. Obviously missing Simmons and Embiid. So I think all that looks good for Curry. And you expect a lot of shots, you expect plenty of assist opportunities for him. So I think that he's a pretty solid option here.
Right. Now, branching away from him, going against, as you mentioned, you forgot Josh Richardson. He's very sad that you didn't bring him up. But Philadelphia sort of decimated. We don't know what's going to happen with Draymond. He is questionable. I believe they've even said game time decision, so they didn't even give us much of a hint here. He has missed the last few games. I'm just seeing if there's any news updated. No, this is from yesterday afternoon. Questionable, dealing with a sore knee. So maybe we'll see something, maybe we won't. But if he is still out, Adam, I think we can go to Marquise Chris. I have no issues with Damian Lee. I'm fine with Eric Pascal. Starts to get a little bit thin after that, in my opinion, just because now you've got Curry, who should be taking close to 20 shots. You still have Wiggins, who should be taking a bunch of shots. There's just not as much trickle down for those other guys.
Yeah, if Green doesn't play, I mean, you got 32 minutes last game from Pascal, who played really well. His salary actually dropped a little bit on DraftKings after that, down to 5,500. Wiggins played 37 minutes, and Lofty and I have talked a lot already about we think that Wiggins will be a better fantasy producer now that Curry is back than he was without Curry. You saw similar with Minnesota, where Wiggins isn't a number one option, and it doesn't benefit him. It hurts his efficiency. But now with Curry, he should be more efficient, and I think that he becomes a better option. Despite maybe a little bit lower usage rate.
All right, let's see here. Just want to look at LeBron. I see somebody taking a fun victory lap in chat. LeBron was about the 29th best player last night, point per dollar on DK. Just saying, we had a good game, but you were paying top dollar for a top end player. If Draymond plays, would you be willing to take a chance on Draymond, assuming 26 minutes?
Probably not. He's 6,100 on DraftKings. He's a 0.9 to 1 fantasy point per minute guy, and even if I assume he plays like 30 minutes, I don't think he's playing a ton of minutes. You have a ton of bodies on Golden State. They're not playing for anything, so I think it would be pretty tough to get to Draymond.
All right, moving over to the Philadelphia side. As mentioned, 2 weeks ago, where I was making fun of Al Horford being $4,800 on DraftKings and saying, I don't really think I have any interest in him. Hey, things have changed. Things have changed a lot, Adam. He is 6,600. I think he is absolutely a fine play on DraftKings. He's a fine play on FanDuel as well. You've got Tobias Harris, arguably one of the best situations tonight. Heavy usage with all those other guys gone. Not the most fierce defense going up against him. Starting off with the front court here, do you like those guys? How much do you like those guys? Is there any weakness in their game that gives you concern?
No, I really like them here because we know that Horford's a lot more productive when he plays without Embiid. He's played 339 minutes now without Simmons or Embiid on the floor. He's averaged 1.09 DraftKings points per minute, and you should expect around 34 minutes from him, at least, against a weak Golden State defense. Salary came down a little bit to 6,600 on DraftKings, so I think he looks like a priority, and he has power forward eligibility as well, which is really nice. Tobias Harris should lead the team in usage. He's averaged 1.15 DraftKings points per minute without those guys on the floor. Again, a good matchup against Golden State, and huge minutes from him coming off of a game where he played 36 and a half minutes. I would expect 36 or 37 again. So I think both of them look like good options. I think that 6,600 for Horford is much more appealing than 8,300 for Harris if you're just choosing between the two.
Do you know how many years Glenn Robinson III has been in the league?
8?
6. I would have guessed 3. Sorry, little dog. I did not give you the credence you deserve. Let's see. He was second round pick, 40th overall, obviously out of Michigan. Went to Minnesota, played 25 games, and then ended up that same year with Philly for 10. Played in Indiana for actually 3 seasons, made 32 starts over those 3 years. Then he went to Detroit. Then obviously this year he started out with Golden State, 48 games, 48 starts, and then they now with Philly. I just bring this up. Even if he's starting, I'm not really excited about him, Adam. I would rather take a chance on some of the other Philly players, maybe a Mike Scott, a Furkan Korkmaz, even an Alec Burks, etc. Ooh, Alec Burks. There's another guy who played for Golden State. What do you want to do here with the secondary options? Setting Shake Milton aside, with the secondary options here, maybe they're tertiary options.
Yeah, so for one, I wouldn't want to be playing multiples of them in the same lineup because they do cannibalize each other's minutes. It's kind of just game flow dependent on, who gets the minutes. You've gotten 28 and 30 minutes in the last two games from Robinson. We got another game where Burks only played 18 minutes last time out. Scott only played 25 minutes compared to 36 the previous game. But there's opportunity for these guys to play well. It's just that they aren't very good, and it's kind of hit or miss each night on who gets the minutes. But with it only being a 5-game slate, rolling the dice on some $3,900 Robinson or $4,200 Corkmus is okay in some lineups, but nothing that I would prioritize.
All right, now let's talk about Shake Milton here. We have money that we don't really have people to spend on. So yes, he is overpriced for what we would like to think his baseline is. But in today's scenario, where we have 10 teams, this is one of the better matchups with not a lot of defense. Philly's favored on the road by 1.5. What do you want to do with Shake Milton?
At 6,300 on DraftKings, I want to not play him and hope other people do, and that maybe he doesn't shoot like Steph Curry for the first time in a while. The the minutes should be there. He only played 27 last game. The game before that, he was in foul trouble against Sacramento. He maybe lost a little bit of time after getting his third foul in the third quarter, but overall, it doesn't seem like he was in foul trouble outside of maybe that. So I would expect low to mid 30s from him. He has a 23% usage rate without Simmons or Embiid on the floor. He's fine. I think that there's better plays. I think he is overpriced because of how well he's been shooting. But with it being a 5-game slate and a good matchup, there's not a problem in getting to him. I would just be very wary of ownership.
All right. Anything else from our penultimate game of the night?
No, I think that's it.
I believe I used that phrase correctly. I thought penultimate means the one before the last one. The one before the ultimate one, which would be the last one. Here we go. Sacramento at Portland. Portland favored by 2.5. Back-to-back for them. 3 and 4, as I've mentioned several times on the show. You've got Sacktown that potentially could have Rashawn Holmes back. We saw Harry Giles play just 15 minutes in the last game. Is that Luke Walton? Is that knee soreness? Is that just he's been playing more minutes than he ever has in his career? Who knows? But if Holmes comes back, that's going to muck with Bjelica, obviously with Giles, etc. Start us off here with Sacktown Kings.
Really good matchup again against a Portland team that has been one of the least efficient defenses in the league. De'Aaron Fox is still priced where I think he should be. He still has upside at around an 8K salary, but it's as far as median projection goes, it's pretty much where he should be. I think that I'll once again be losing a lot of money by playing Buddy Hield, who is only 5,400. He is not playing as many minutes as he was earlier in the year. Now that he's coming off the bench, he got 25 minutes last game. That's typically what you're getting from him.
It feels like there's an invisible limit where he cannot go over 25 minutes at this point, Adam.
Yeah, it's pretty frustrating. But at the same time, since moving to the bench, he's averaged 1.2 DraftKings points per minute. He has a 28% usage rate. Great matchup against Portland. And he's just, maybe it'll change today with the 5-game slate, but he really just hasn't been popular recently. And getting that kind of upside from someone that is low owned is always really appealing. My tune would change if he is projected for a lot of ownership, because obviously the flip side is that you're talking about 25 or 26 minutes from someone, and if he shoots poorly, he can bust, pretty quickly. But I think that if he is low owned, he looks like a good option.
Yeah, particularly on DraftKings, where you get him at the jack of all trades position, shooting guard, small forward, which means he's eligible for everything but center. So you've got $5,700 price tag on FanDuel. A little bit higher than I'd like, especially with the curved upside. 22 on Yahoo. Not as exciting there. So this is kind of a DK favored play with just 10 teams in the player pool. I don't want to say only on some of these guys. limiting things by that factor. I see in chat someone saying what's happened to Hield. Hield's coming off the bench, and that's just capping. It's basically taking 8 minutes away from him.
Luke
Based
Walton
on
is what has happened to Hield.
pardon.
Luke Walton is what has happened
Well,
to Hield.
yes, that's fair. And then there were some Instagram shenanigans of liking things or not like. I don't remember, but it's a mess, Adam. It's a mess because he was at one point this season, what 40 games in, he was like third or fourth in the NBA in 3-point attempts per game. I mean, the guy was fantastic as a fantasy player. Now, not so much. As Adams pointed out, the efficiency is still there. It's just simply a function of he's missing 8 minutes from what he had been getting before, which is frustrating. Kent Bazemore, another guy I feel a little bit better about. 4,600 on DK, 43 on FanDuel. Really, really, really like him on FanDuel. And then I really like him at 13 on Yahoo. He fits in nicely with what Sacramento is doing. He's familiar with the Portland guys because he played with them this year for a little bit, but he's someone that fits into this game because he's not going to be sized out, and there's enough guys that are there for him to guard, and he is enough of a jack of all trades that I feel this will be him seeing 25 to 27 minutes kind of a game, Adam, which makes me more appealing, or makes him more appealing for me at his current price point. Whereas if it was a different matchup like the Lakers or somebody, well, Lakers revenge, but if it was a different matchup against a different team, I wouldn't feel as strongly.
Yeah, and he has a 20% usage rate since coming to Sacramento. He's averaged 0.88 DraftKings points per minute. By comparison, when he was with Portland this year, 16% usage rate, 0.7 DraftKings points per minute. So he's been more productive. The playing time has been there, and he's another one where it's just seems like he's never really that popular. I guess because he comes off the bench and because the minutes are somewhat volatile. But I think that he's priced lower than he really should be in a good matchup against Portland. So I'm with you. Similar to Heald, where if for whatever reason he ends up being projected for a lot of ownership, you can certainly find pivots because it's pretty easy to see how he fails. But assuming he doesn't get a ton of ownership, I think that he's a good value.
All right, thoughts on Joseph and Len as we round through our way through the roster here. Bogey, Harrison Barnes. Oh, Harrison Barnes. Harrison Barnes.
Rashawn Holmes is questionable. If he's back, that obviously muddies the front court. If he's out, I do have interest in Giles and Len because we've seen a couple of games now where they didn't come close to playing 48 minutes, but that was against Al Horford led Philadelphia front court. It was against the Wizards, who you don't need centers for. Now you have Hassan Whiteside probably playing 36 minutes. You need to have centers out there at least for that amount of time, and so I think that if Holmes is out, taking a shot on a $3,900 Len or a $4,400 Giles in a matchup where they should play more minutes is a pretty good idea.
All right. Portland is in a scrum. So Portland, the Kings, the Pellies, and the Spurs are all 3.5 to 4 games out from the 8th spot, which is occupied by Memphis. That really hurt Portland that they lost last night to a shorthanded Suns team. Their 3 key players played a boatload of minutes. I suspect that's really not going to impact what they're doing tonight. They really, really, really need this win. This is a winnable game for their final little shreds of playoff hopes here. Do the minutes played last night by McCollum, Whiteside, and or Lillard concern you at all?
Not really, because that's kind of just the norm at this point. They play huge minutes. Terry Stotts runs his starters into the ground. So, I guess the best way to look at it is I would rather that they hadn't played huge minutes last night, but I don't think it really has an impact on tonight. Like I don't think Stotts is going to be like, oh, gotta only play them 32 minutes or something.
Yeah, they may be being able to rest them in about 2 weeks, whether they if their playoff hopes are gone. So I like these guys. Who is your favorite amongst that trio tonight?
I think Whiteside, especially if Holmes is out. Holmes actually has been a solid rebounder and defender this year, but if you're getting Whiteside against Len and Giles, I think you should have success. The problem you run into is that he's a lot more expensive than Valanciunas, who I like obviously a ton against Atlanta. Lillard looks good. Some concern just because of it being a back to back and him being fresh off of an injury that caused him to miss about a month. So um, I think those two look the best. I think I'd prefer Whiteside.
All right. Yes, CJ McCollum is a little more expensive than we like, but that should come with a discount in his popularity or ownership, as we like to call it. So that is something to think about. I think Trevor Ariza is intriguing in this one, sort of the jack of all trades option. Anybody else after those guys that I guess Melo. How do you feel about Melo in this one?
Pretty neutral. The minutes, he should be in the 32 to 34 minute range. He's not he's the third option offensively as far as usage goes, around 20-21% when Lillard and McCollum both play. It's a fine matchup for him, but I don't think the price tag's particularly favorable. I think that a lot of guys kind of dropped in salary, whereas Melo didn't, and that'll make him tough to get to. Like in my mind, he's not really even comparable to Al Horford at 6,600. So
Cool.
I would rather be just getting to Horford.
All right. Oh, here's a please and oh, and as soon as I say that, I lost it. I want to get back to it. So Jesse Aguiar has said, Adam, can you please help me out? So he said, please. So hey, let's help him out with this question. This is a 2v2. Yes, it's early, but first blush 2v2 on Yahoo. Would you go with Jamal Murray and Wiggins, or Steph Curry and Bazemore? I'm personally leaning towards the second pairing.
Murray, Wiggins, or Curry and Bazemore?
Yes.
It seems really close. The the reason I would lean towards Murray and Wiggins is the minutes. Obviously, I think you have similar projections and ceilings from both groups, but I think that the first one is maybe a little bit higher probability just because you're probably getting 36 minutes from both of them, whereas you're getting like 30 and 30 from Curry and Bazemore. So um, assuming ownership is similar, I would go toward the first one by a little bit.
All right. There we go. Easy enough. Let's talk a little bit about some of our potential SuperDraft plays here on the early going. Reminder, if you guys have not yet signed up for SuperDraft, when you do so, when creating the account, use the promo code AWESOMO. That way, when you make your first deposit, if it's $100, they will give you $20 in Super Cash, which is available for immediate use into any contest. Just a reminder, there are no salary caps over there at SuperDraft. It is the multipliers. How that works is each player is assigned a multiplier. Someone like, say, Giannis Antetokounmpo has a multiplier of 1. Someone like, say, I don't know, Shake Milton has a multiplier of 1.7. So the less likely a player is to have a hefty fantasy baseline, the better multiplier they get. So that kind of brings everybody back into the same level playing field. But it's not exactly a level playing field because there are some mismatches here and some matchups that we can take advantage of. So a couple guys I wanted to call out tonight. These will be 3 of the most popular players. They're all coming from the same game. It is Steph Curry, Golden State versus the 76ers. He has a 1.45 multiplier. That's pretty hefty. You have Al Horford coming in at a 1.6 multiplier. That's phenomenal. So it's based kind of on his recent performance for the last 2 months, not his recent performance since Joel Embiid has been out. And then you have Tobias Harris at a 1.45. Those would be the 3 guys that really stand out to me immediately on SuperDraft. So those would be what I would consider my core plays. Reminder, we will have Live Before Lock tonight with Fast Eddie Fear. That will start at 6. We will go until 7, talking the main 5-game slate. And then at 7, we will shift over to SuperDraft, which locks tonight at 7:30, and we will spend time talking about the 4 games that are on their slate, along with the multipliers, etc. So that is what we will be doing for tonight's action. Again, you get the NHL strategy show later this afternoon with Jay Kari in the can already. We do have the XFL show that was with Sal Vetri and Chris Spags. You can get that on the YouTube channel or on the Awesemo podcast channel. And then we also have the deep dive article will be coming out behind the paywall. We have a free XFL article, and then we've got all sorts of the NBA tools that are behind the paywall. You'll want to check those out. NHL projections are in front of the paywall today. But we've got a lot of stuff here for you guys at Awesemo, and it will be a good time. So, Adam, any final thoughts on today's action?
I'll have the deep dive article out in a few hours behind the paywall. I'll be around in Slack as well. Tag me if you have questions, and I'll do my best to answer.
Excellent. And that's the best part about Slack is you do have access to Adam 24/7. Again, if you have not used the promo code NBA Strategy, that gets you 50% off any 1 week package here at Osmo. That does give you Slack access to Adam. And there's no way you can mute somebody on Slack. It's very awesome.
You can mute the entire app though.
Well, if you get Adam to turn that off, congratulations. All right. Oh, Jesse gives us a $5 super chat. Thank you. See, it was a good answer there from Adam. Check back tonight, and we'll see if that changes.
He'll be asking for a refund in like 8 hours.
We'll see. You can. That is Adam Ship Your Money Share on DFS. I am at EMac DFS, and of course, it is Osmo_COM. With that.